sleeping in a box in the cold before he went to the homeless shelter. But then the story goes on that he treated everyone positively, and they all became his friends. And this story ends with a fully furnished apartment, and John says, "I never paid a dime for it," because everyone on Connecticut Avenue made a connection with John and with each other. Everyone on Connecticut Avenue found a new humanity. And John says, "I started out from nothing, and I built an empire." And his arms are raised like this, posing like the man. And towards the end of that summer, John is explaining something beautiful that he's thought of to me. He says, "In a way, I think the world is like God's garden, because he throws us down, just like seeds. And then we rise up, in all different colors and places, in all different shapes, all different sizes. We rise and we rise until we reach our peak, and then we begin to stoop, lower and lower, until we become the dust again. Of course, then the seed comes back out, and God takes it back. And in that way, he's something of a selfish God." And I smile and nod my head. I'm smart, good-looking. And then John pauses and starts counting on his fingers. "And old," I say. And we laugh. And when I'm looking back on it now, it seems so silly that I walked right past John on that first day. This person whom I love so much. It's like thinking of someone who's been your good friend for a long time. And John says, "When I first became homeless and started panhandling, I was so ashamed. But then I became loved, and I feel like a human being again." So, hopefully this story has given you a human face for this problem, and inspired you to join in our conversation on the structures of this issue. So now I'd like to ask, according to you, let's just brainstorm. What are the problems associated with homelessness? When we were giving this conversation, one of our students said, "Well, there was a homeless man who was found last year in this area, dead. He froze and died of hypothermia when he was sleeping outside." So that's one problem, all the horrible stuff that happens when we're not taking care of these people. And some other answers people might give are food and clothing are urgent problems. And some other things you might associate with this problem are drug addiction, alcoholism, mental illness. So now I'd like to talk to you about the Housing First model. Maybe you've heard of it. And for those of you who haven't, it's just how it sounds. When you're dealing with the problem of homelessness, when you're taking people and you're trying to help them improve their situation, to get into a new situation, your first objective is to put them in a house before you worry about anything else. So, what are the arguments against the Housing First model? Well, one is that homeless people are lazy. If you start out by giving them the reward, it'll take all the urgency out of their situation that would actually motivate them to go out and look for jobs. And what are the arguments for? Well, a person named Brad Carter in the Daytona Beach, Florida area has said, "Food and clothing are not the urgent issue. The government spends a lot of money on food stamps. If your true objective is to get people to go out and look for jobs, you should give them what they need to look presentable to talk to people, and that's a warm, dry place to sleep and a shower they can use every day. Research has shown that people who sleep outside get an average of 2 hours of sleep per night. And once you've endured that for weeks, for months on end, that's when you develop the mental illnesses, the dispositions for drinking and drug addiction. So these things aren't so much a cause of the problem, but a result of asking people to live without the standards for human dignity. If your objective is to get people to go out and look for jobs, give them what they need to actually show up with dignity to these places and turn in their resumes to look like people and be able to talk with others. And Brad Carter has also said, "Whenever I close my eyes, I am breaking the law." Because in Florida, it is illegal to sleep outside, and Brad Carter himself is a homeless person. And that's another important concept. When you're trying to meet people's needs in order to enable them to improve their situations, you should go where people are and find out what those needs are. So here's an example of someone who uses the Housing First model. His name is Jim Withers, and Jim Withers has said, "The essence of healthcare is going where people are. And when you show up for people, either physically or, more importantly, emotionally, spiritually, when you show people that they matter, and when that really sinks in, then hope grows and amazing things happen." Jim Withers is a doctor who works in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, full-time, going out into the streets, doing free checkups for the homeless. And this is what he's done. Instead of creating a huge service and then saying, "Everyone who needs help, come to us," he's gone to where people are and made human connections. And once he has all these individual connections, he can take these people and put them in housing with his organization nonprofit, Safety Net. Jim Withers has housed well over 700 people. And today, homelessness, there are half as many homeless people on the streets of Pittsburgh as there used to be before Jim Withers started working. It is half the problem as it used to be. I was telling this story to a friend and she told me, "Wow, that's amazing. The power of simple human care." And while we were giving this conversation at our school, one girl said, "You know, if you start out with the reward by giving them that, I don't think they'd become lazy and unmotivated. I think they'd actually feel responsible for that. And that would be true motivation to go out and try to improve their situation." And a teacher who was with us said, "Yes, and that would actually humanize them too, and start the process of giving them their dignity back, and allowing them to be presentable and talk to people again." And then this teacher shared with us that in March, he discovered his own brother was homeless because another teacher was volunteering at a local homeless shelter. And then she came back and she said,